Karen Edelstein somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on. I just don't have my screen.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't.
Good.
I can't have the camera and be able to look at the screen.
Ah, yes. So who are we missing? We're missing.
Got Robin joining now.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then so David Wolf is missing and that's it. Oh, no. What about Todd Walter? Okay, well, let's get started. Once again, we have a pretty full agenda.
David is joining now as well too.
All right.
Oh, and
Right.
there's Todd. Okay.
Excellent.
No, there's Todd.
Okay.
Everybody.
Good evening. We're going to start this meeting right off. I'll call the meeting to order, and there's the question of approval of the October 1st, 2020 minutes. I had one comment about the Bell Station. It said 490 approximate acres with 500 feet of shoreline. I think it's more like 3,400 feet of shoreline.
I think so too.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any comments about the minutes?
I didn't.
You're fine.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and approve those.
Yep.
Heather, can you correct that that part on the Bell Station?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks. Okay. And CJ, is there anybody that wants to, from the public that wants to join in?
I don't see anybody in the waiting room here.
Big surprise.
Nothing on email.
Okay. Okay, so then the next topic is our membership. Well, we have 4 people up for reappointment if they want to be reappointed. And Heather, you sent that that information out to all 4 people, right?
Yep, I did that this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I heard from Andra by way of email that she's willing to be the liaison.
Great,
again.
great,
news.
great. So everybody is basically on board. Now, what do we do about the fact that maybe somebody else wants to join the committee?
So there needs to be a time when we actually advertise to the public, as far as I understand, and our council gets the opportunity to weigh in on, do we want that advertisement to be for a week or for 2 weeks? How do we want that to run? And Heather and CJ, you might have something to add to that.
Sure. So this past March, the town board approved an appointed board application process, and I could just pop a link over to you all. But in short, we just advertise and invite qualified people to apply by notice of vacancy on the website or in the newspaper. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, the terms that are up this year are only up because of the virtue of alphabetical order. So 4 of the members were just expiring. So we sent the link to everybody, and just apply if you'd like. And if you'd like we plan to run the ad for 2 to 3 weeks in the newspaper if there ends up being an opening. And then we'll essentially run that through an interview at the next meeting, which will be in early December. And then you can make a motion to recommend somebody to the town board, and then that recommendation will go to the town board.
So CJ, I sent in my application today, but if we
Okay.
have all of us who are supposed to, our terms expire in December, and everybody chooses to sign back up, is there, I think we mentioned this the last time and I can't remember what the answer was. Is there a little bit of wiggle room to increase the size of the committee if we get somebody who's really good, or does one of us have to step off?
That's a good question, and I think it's in the statute of how many members you could
think it's
have,
closer to 7, actually. I remember seeing a lower number than we have. And I was surprised that, all of the people who were interested got on, but also pleased because I think we need this many people. So maybe that's a question for someone to find out is how big can we get?
So if you're a liaison, does that count as a member?
I believe so, yeah. They'd be appointed members.
Okay,
Yeah, General Municipal Law 239X will have the number in there. So I'll take a quick look and get back to you.
okay. So
I had just a follow-up question for CJ and Heather. When you say interviews in early December, who interviews them?
That would be you.
Okay.
If you'd like, yeah, so maximum 239X is not more than 9, so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And
And I just sent the process to you. I just dropped it as a file in here in the chat. So if you want to take a look and you could see what the outline of each board, this only applies to CAC, Planning Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals as far as committees go, but that's the process that I just dropped in there.
okay.
okay, so we're basically filled up at this point. Is that right? We have 9.
Yeah.
9 is the max by New York State. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. Well, so if everybody applies, then basically the committee stays the same, assuming that the board approves.
So are we required to interview people, CJ? Do you know?
You're not required to if you don't wish to. You
Okay.
could simply just re-recommend the same members, re-up, and it could be that easy, sure.
Mhm.
If everyone would just like to stay on, like I said, it wasn't the terms were anything to do with personal or individual members. It was just the first 4 people were in alphabetical order and their term ended in 2020. That was it. So
Mhm.
I don't anticipate any concern with your particular recommendation for folks to re-up.
Okay.
If they'd like.
Okay. So moving on to the natural resources inventory. Maybe do we want to start? So right now, the natural resources inventory doesn't officially have the executive summary in there.
I just sent it to Heather, I think.
You got it.
And I was just asked to pull out the acknowledgements and resend it, so I resubmitted it, and then we're gonna put it in.
Okay.
Yep,
So,
we got that and a question about the open space section from Robin as well.
mhm. So when I read it over today, I guess my only question was it doesn't have like an ending sentence or something like that. David, does the new version have, is it basically the same in that one that Robin had?
The executive,
The
yeah,
executive,
the same with what you guys have seen before,
yeah.
the executive summary. Yeah, I can't remember what the ending sentence was, but yeah, I didn't change anything.
Well, let's see if I have it here.
Pull it up on mine, share screen or something. But
So, I guess if we're still on the subject of the executive summary and everybody's pulling it up,
yeah, I mean, I've got a hard copy here. I can also pull it up. I can share my screen.
Just hold it up, David.
I see that I made some
No,
comments.
no, there is no ending sentence. It kind of goes through, it follows basically the outline of the full document. Has an introduction, talks about climate change, hydrology, geology and soils, land use and land cover, unique natural areas, protected open space, and ends with a short paragraph on land evaluation. End of story. So there's no concluding statement.
So do we want to add a concluding statement?
I mean, in the introduction, there's sort of, you know, for example, in the introduction, that's at the beginning of the document, the second paragraph says, you know, just kind of describes what the document is designed to do, sort of. And I'm sure I pulled from some of stuff that was in the original document.
Mhm.
So it talks about the purpose of the NRI. The NRI can help guide community members and municipal officials toward a more sustainable and resilient future as they seek to balance economic development with protection of natural areas and resources, et cetera, et cetera. The NRI also lays out explicit mechanisms for protecting natural resources from non-regulatory tools such as land acquisition education to regulatory tools. So the introduction just, you know, lays out what the reader's about to read, but I think, I don't know. So that's the closest, you know, it's not a conclusion. It just says, it is what it is. Yeah. So I looked at the executive summary just to describe what they find in the document. And I don't think there's a concluding statement to summarize or to, you know, so I didn't feel free to summarize the entire document in a paragraph. I think the introduction sort of, in a way, does what the, you know, it describes what the, you know, what this was designed to provide. And that's
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's all good stuff. I just thought that it maybe a final sentence.
Yeah, I don't feel like it'd be up to me to really write that, but we could talk about that, or we could email subsequent to this meeting some ideas for how to, a concluding sentence or paragraph to that. Could have, I don't think the NRI document has something at the end, does it? It doesn't have a conclusion section, does it? The original? As far as I know, I don't think it does.
No.
So there was nothing to summarize in terms of, it just ends with, yeah, that section. But that's, yeah, I'm open to that idea.
Okay.
Well, maybe like what sort of, I guess it could be something in the frame, in the concept of Lansing has a lot of wonderful natural resources that we need to be careful, you know, conserve, and
Yeah,
document will serve that purpose, you know. This document.
right.
That would be great. So is it possible just to send that over to Heather and have her add it in, and you just send her an email with that?
I could try something. Yeah, I could draft something, you know, a few sentences or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think that's ample.
So
Yeah.
is this inventory something that is going to be revisited later? I mean, could that be the ending? Is like, this is the status of today, but we will revisit this every 5 years or something?
Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah, because like I said, the introduction kind of describes how it could be used, but in the conclusion, we could talk about how it's a, you know, a living document, something along those lines.
I think it's nice to keep it vague. I don't know, Tom. I'm not sure I want to visit it every
5 years, I'd say. 10
Right,
years.
the point was just that it's like Dave said, it's a living document. This isn't the set in stone forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Put in there
To say
too.
that this is a living document that could be improved upon in the future or whatever.
Great,
Okay.
good.
Something along those lines.
And then
You could also, if you'd like, I could help a little. We can
Yeah,
put,
sure.
we could also kind of mention the follow-up, you know, open space index.
That's
That could be a, you know, a segue to that. And the
Yeah.
scenic resource inventory.
Say, for example, the open space index is still to come, you know, with this and that sort of thing. So we'll be constantly updating information.
You mean the Scenic Resources Index?
Yeah, this scenic inventory there.
Yeah.
We can also, yeah, we can mention those.
I think it is mentioned in it,
I mean, we can kind of wrap it up. Well,
right?
anyway, we could, I'm happy to, you know, just to take a look at it if somebody wants to do a little revision thing. I wish we had an easier way to share documents. SharePoint is kind of,
Yeah, what we can do
really
is
short
work
for me.
and then come up when we have a final, because this is usually a short paragraph, then you guys can insert that, right? Easy enough.
okay, that seems reasonable. Go ahead
But
and
it
send it
seems
to
like
both of them.
a minor enough addition that we could just move forward from here. I know some people are anxious to get it along to the planning board.
Mhm.
And I think the plan is that we would do that. Is it a good time now to set a target date for that?
Yes. We talked about having it available to the planning board at their next meeting, which is 2 weeks from Monday, I believe.
Mhm. So CJ and Heather, is it realistic that the changes could be input by that before then, and the CAC could have one last peek if need be?
There's, okay, so you want to just come up with like a quick schedule of review?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we should just do a quick poll here. Does anybody want to take one last look at it?
Well, I would just say, I mean, I looked at the climate change section that's, you know, in the main document, and there were a number of editorial things and stuff that I haven't really addressed yet. So there's still some things I need to do with that. They had some suggested deletions of some sentences which I didn't quite agree with, but some places where just, yeah, the wording could possibly be improved.
Mhm.
For example, changing all the references to a footnote version. Is that what's going on in the whole document, CJ? Is it all using footnotes for references?
You know, they just handed the InDesign document off to me, so I'm gonna have to dig in and see
Yeah, well,
what
I haven't used
happened.
footnotes since high school. And all the writing I do, the hundreds of publications, we use the format I use. So I don't
Yeah.
like the
Oh, there's a,
footnotes. I'd rather
what
not
was
format that.
the style preference that you were
Well,
mentioning?
you like the, you know, the name of the authors and then the year it was published, and at the end you list the authors by last name of first author and the date it was published. It's really classic for, you know,
You mean the citations are not,
citations that were cited. Yeah, you have references cited at the end of
oh,
the,
okay.
at the end of the document. As you're citing them within the document, you refer to the last name of the first author. If there's two authors, you refer to one of them. I don't know.
I guess the style editors at Cornell Cooperative Extension where maybe they
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look
not
at the rest of
necessarily hip.
it. They use footnotes throughout. I find that very tedious because then you can't really just see all the references that were cited in that section.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Alphabetically or whatever. Even
But
another
Okay.
easy to use is like superscripts. The first time something's mentioned in a document, you give it a number 1, and then it's the first one that's indicated at the end. But if you're going to do that for the whole document, you got to renumber all the citations. So that doesn't make sense either. I don't know.
Mhm.
So David, did extension change what you wrote about climate change?
They deleted a couple sentences and then a couple.
Wow.
They you know, crossed them out and said, but put a note as to why they, I don't know, they just, yeah, deleted a couple sentences.
Yeah.
I didn't really agree with, actually. There was a
Yeah.
couple, they just shaded a couple things and had comments which were reasonable. I haven't looked at them carefully, but it's like, you know, I used the same word twice in a sentence, that kind of common, you know, issue. So I'm happy to relook at that, think about maybe rewording if I did some little bit of sloppy writing somewhere here or there.
But if it's actual content and factual stuff, I don't think that's
Yeah, I'm
appropriate.
happy with deleting stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm opposed to that.
Mhm.
There's a lot. I haven't looked carefully at every little thing they did, but there was a few, not a lot, but a few things.
Okay, so let's plan to
And all the citations would have to be by footnotes, which that's
So-
fine if you want to do the whole document with footnotes. But I just We'd rather not have to do that mystical nightmare. First of all, if you do footnotes, then if you use a different, like if you have that in Word and then you try to transcribe that into another type of software, the footnotes aren't all going to end up at the bottom of the page. Who knows where they're going to end up? You know, Microsoft Word uses a certain way to create footnotes and et cetera. So I think it's much easier to do something that's not footnotes, because those have to be in smaller font at the bottom of each page where the footnote occurs. I can do that in a Word document fine, but then if you pull that up and try to put that into another kind of document, with a different software, it's not going to work. It's a mess. So anyway, I don't know what they were talking about there, but.
Okay, sounds like there's some formatting issues with the Word. Is it the Word version or is it the PDF that doesn't look good?
Looking at I don't know. I was looking at whatever was sent out that we were supposed to review. I think that was. I think I don't know, it was a Word or whatever. The last thing we were sent out, the entire document was sent out. The most recent entire thing we were asked to look at.
Okay.
So how are we going to leave that? Are we going to do author date then in parentheses for the style? And if anything has appeared in a footnote, we're going to convert it?
Or, if all the other chapters just use footnotes, that's fine with me to convert mine to footnotes. I just ask that I not have to be responsible for that. So I really don't even know how you do that. If you have the same author cited more than once, you use ibid or whatever it is, Latin stuff, and I don't know how to do that. Maybe Todd knows how to do that.
I don't think we should get too hung. I don't think we should get too hung up on footnotes versus regular citations.
No, that should be something that I think somebody should reformat. If there's differences in
Yeah.
written
And
citations, we should.
here's another thought. In order to get this thing moving and off to the planning board, we can just have it as a draft document. Doesn't have to be in final form.
Yeah, well, I'm just needing to get to that climate change section and look at what I've got. I'm just very busy with teaching a course right now, but I'll try to get to that very shortly.
So getting back to the timeline, if the planning board meeting is in 2 weeks from this coming Monday,
So
Yeah.
then would the idea be that we would give them an opportunity to take a look at either a draft or a link to the document ahead of time? Is that what's normally done?
That would be good.
So they might, would you like them to be able to make comments on it and just send the Word document around then and just save the InDesign version until we get to the final layout? If you want to circulate it, that's an easy way to do it. If it's mostly where you want it now. I didn't see the CAC NRI circulated.
Sure.
What
Is it,
PJ?
did you send it? I just don't know what version you emailed everybody. I might have gotten it, but I might.
Yeah, the link is
The
the link's in the agenda, and when you go to the link, it shows all the different versions. I think it's a Word version and a PDF version.
Yeah.
So
Okay, excellent. This is what you'd like to have circulated.
I would.
I have something called it's a PDF. Town of Lansing NRI 8620. Is that the most recent one?
I looked at the Word document.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm consulting, David.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I looked at that too. I think that was maybe I only could pull that up. I guess I didn't save that perhaps.
So what I think I might be hearing is that we should circulate the Word version with David's executive summary included.
Okay.
But there is, okay, so the Word version has quite a few comments in it from guest users, which is, I think that might be a little bit TMI for the planning board.
So we get rid of all that, send them a finalized Word document, but it's going to be a draft.
Well,
We
couldn't
can
we
tell
also
them
just,
it's
how about the PDF?
well. Yeah, if you don't want them to make any specific comments on it. But if you want them to comment on it, the Word document would probably be easier.
Do you expect that they would comment on it, like making inline edits or just general comments?
I'm guessing if it's anything, there might be a few general comments. But I mean, you could do that, you could do that in an email too.
Yeah. How about we stick, I'm just thinking CJ and Heather are pretty overwhelmed right now. That's my perception, at least, that there's so much going on. And so for us to ask them to do anything too special with this right now, other than inputting David's and Robin's, paragraphs, that seems reasonable, but then
We can, I mean, it's not unreasonable. We're okay with formatting it the way that you want to. We just want to make sure we're understanding what you want and that we have the enough lead time to just take care of that, because we just received the InDesign version finally wrangled it from a Cornell Cooperative Extension there. So
changes made in Word, if I understand it, are going to need to be re-imported into InDesign. Whereas if you work in InDesign, you can just make your specific changes and you do not need to go back to the Word document. So if this is true and I understand it correctly, I would stick with the InDesign version, create one more PDF and give that to the planning board and just say, we're interested in general comments. You can send them in an email. I think with the PDF version, they could also, they can comment in PDF too.
It seems that one of the problems I have with the final version that we're working with now is the last few pages. It's a bunch of red lettering that is incomplete. And so I think maybe we should just take all that out. It's sections that we have never dealt with.
Pull it up on the screen, the section you're talking about.
Well,
yeah, so we'll be able to,
oh no, I guess it's, okay, this version I'm looking at now it seems like it's fine. Let's see here. Oh no, here we go. When we started talking about scenic resources on page 95, CJ, can you bring up the NRI?
sure. I've got the PDF version here. Is that?
Whatever version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Here we go.
The PDF I'm looking at doesn't have 95 pages.
It's 88. Is that right?
Oh, okay. Well, I was going with the the Word version. So.
Okay. So what we're talking about adding here is just the executive summary here at the top. We'll just import that in, and then we'll keep pretty much everything else the same. Well, this is just because it's on a web browser, but it looks pretty complete. I mean, I haven't done a full read through yet, but it looks like we're on our way here.
So
I have some changes to this section, this open space section that you're showing.
Okay.
But I still have an open question that I emailed you about and that I hadn't heard from Terry about. So I think if I can get an answer to that question, I should be able to send you that as soon as I know something, or I could just delete some things and send it the way it is. But I do have some changes to the open space section.
Okay, and Okay, I'll respond to your email about that.
I had a
then-
question. Okay, go ahead.
And then I'll add the executive summary, and then
Yeah.
we'll package it up.
Work on that last paragraph or whatever.
Okay, so final paragraph. If you can, Robin and David, if we could coordinate this by the end of, let's call it next week.
Yeah, that's.
If we do this by the end of the next week, we should be able to turn it around to planning board early the week of the 15th, which will give them a week to look at it before their meeting. They've got a pretty packed agenda though, so.
Yeah,
I
it may
mean,
not even come up, but it would be
Well,
good
we'll-
to get it to them.
Yeah, so we will absolutely bring it up for sure. And we'll make sure it comes to their special attention, and then we'll write out a date of dates of review. So we'll need a schedule of review and anticipated adoption. But I understand you want to get it to planning board sooner rather than later. So if that sounds good, we'll make those edits. And would you, or is the CAC comfortable with us then circulating it with those changes, with that executive summary and perhaps a few minor changes to the last sentences there? This amendment regarding the open space. I think you asked something about the Wetlands Reserve Program, so we'll track that down. And then import the document or export it from InDesign into PDF and circulate it to the planning board. Does that sound like what you're looking to do? Okay, and then we'll just mention the rest of the schedule of review, and then I imagine it might come back to you after planning board. But I'd want you to be able to send the final version that you wanted to the town board. So probably early January.
Finding the Word document that had the comments on the climate section. I don't know what happened to that in my files, so I have to look that up. And I could respond to it.
Okay, yeah, no worries. We'll get this wrapped up here soon. There's been just some competing things with, especially trying to get people to review the Office of Renewable Energy siting regulations too, which are very long. So, and don't have as many pictures in them as
So
as it needs to.
by the 13th, DJ?
Yeah, if we can make those, we can turn around these changes and export this by close of business on, let's call it the Friday the 13th. Auspicious. And then we can turn it around to the planning board the following week, early on Monday, the 16th. We can get that out to them. And that way they'll have a little time before their meeting. But like I said, they have a pretty jamming agenda. So, you know, we'll definitely bring it to their attention and make sure they get it under separate cover, and so that it's highlighted as something new and exciting. And they're anticipating it as well. I've mentioned it before at past meetings, I think, right, Tom? I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that the version that you're all talking about, I haven't looked at this in a while, is in the Google Drive folder that you sent around on October 29th. And even though last modified, it's like August, that's still the one that's in play.
I hope so.
Let's see if we can get a date on this. Actually, we ought to make sure there is a date on it. So it is in the drive, Karen. I'm just looking.
In the Google Drive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one I'm working off of is the link that I put into the agenda.
Okay, not the one that was in the thing that went around on October 29th then. Is that was from Tom? Hey, shh. That was the one that from Tom that said, "Dear CAC, here's the link for the NRI from Terry Carroll." That was a week ago.
That's the same, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, so that says to me that there haven't been any edits that were made in quite a number of months.
Yeah, I don't know what I saw recently.
Well, let's see, is there a way to get a date on a Google?
Yeah, there's a field in the window that says last modified on, and that's why I'm confused. Mine at least says for the PDF and
Okay,
there's a Word document. It says last modified August 6th.
I've got that one.
yeah, Terry Carroll. So that's the PDF that we're all looking at, and it is August 6th.
And that was the last time changes were made. I think that we've talked about things and offered things to him since August. It's November. Don't you think? I'm just wondering whether there's, I don't know, if everybody's seeing their recent changes have gone into that, then maybe it's, maybe it's just a glitch with Google, but it concerns me.
Yeah, I haven't taken a good look at it. I've left it with Cornell Cooperative Extension. And so now we finally have the source documents. So we're going to probably have to bump them against each other to see what's missing. So,
Okay. All right. Just wanted to point that out.
yep, we'll need to do that next week. So,
So I found an error that may or may not be important. It was about the watersheds. It was in table 4. And it said the Owasco Inlet and Salmon Creek watersheds are about the same size, 34 square miles. But then you look at the map, the wetlands and hydrology map, it's very obvious that those are both not the same size. And the map is right and the table is wrong. Maybe they meant 3.4 square miles for the Owasco Inlet.
No, bigger than that. Tom, I'll put that on my list to recalculate. Okay. Just in case.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the map, it's obvious that they're not the same size.
All right, I'll do it once I can get my that window open after the meeting.
I found the latest draft I was talking about. It was posted by Terrence Carroll, October 29th.
Where?
I got the link from Tom Butler.
Yeah.
It was an email that you sent out on 10/29, I think.
That's so weird.
So is that the Google Drive link?
Yeah, the Google Drive, and it's got a link.
Yeah.
It came from Tom, and you go to that Google Drive link, and it takes you to, if you go there to look at the NRI draft, that was dated October 29th. And that's the one.
See that email.
That's the link that I'm using. That is so weird.
So
Where is the date, Karen?
If you're looking at the NRI folder, there's 6 documents, and if you follow across the top, there's name, owner, and last modified.
yeah.
It's possible that some people have a different view. I had a different view, and then you have to click on the icon to change the view if you're not seeing that.
I'm not seeing that.
But what you can also, John, what you can also do is just like if I click on the PDF, there's a sort of a sidebar on the right side that also has that information that says modified. Oh, it just doesn't make sense. It says modified August 6th, 2020 and created on October 29th. So that doesn't make sense.
I'm not finding that anywhere. Well,
I think this is when he created we couldn't get the Cornell box system to share with us either. So I think he put this in his own Google Drive to share it with us. So yeah, maybe the last modifications of the PDF were August. But my guess is that the InDesign document probably has changes in it that aren't reflected in the most current PDF. So that's what my guess is that the changes that you've been making since then were not if they were incorporated in the InDesign document, you all can't see it unless you have.
It's also changes and comments that they made. Tom Butler, I mean, not Tom Butler, but Terrence or somebody.
Yeah, that Adobe Illustrator document is dated June 18th.
Well, I just resent to all of you the message from Butler of October 29th that had the link to the NRI draft that was changed October 29th by Terrence Carroll.
Yeah, that's so weird because that's the link I'm using.
Yeah, so if you go to NRI drafts, and it's got images and it's got drafts, and the drafts.
So David, when you look at that, is it showing for example, the PDF version, Town of Lansing NRI, Terrence Carroll, August 6th?
When I open it, it shows October 29th, Terrence Carroll draft from October 29th.
That's the PDF one.
No, well, I don't know if it's a PDF or what.
Well, October 29th is true for the drafts and the NRI images, but when you go down and you see a red icon that's the second from the bottom, that shows August 6th for me.
Yep, me too.
But I'm looking at the drafts, the October 29th draft.
Then keep going down.
Yeah, but why would I? That's the most recent one, though.
Well, because
if that draft was the most latest one, it's got Terrence Carroll's edits in there.
But when you open that folder, it says June 29th.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So we don't want that one, I don't think.
Oh, okay. So this is older than the August.
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Well, since I saw the October 29th, I thought it was the latest. Okay. Well, that's good. These are a lot of things I don't have to worry about. Yeah. Okay. So I can ignore that one. It was the October 29th that threw me. Sorry, guys.
So clear as mud for everybody.
Well, when I looked at Google Drive, I see
The
October.
first I've seen of this folder. Thank you for sharing it. Now I have it. I can actually compare the edits for the section that I was working on. So
we're supposed
I will just put them in the new draft.
So we go from the August 6th PDF. We never got a Word version of that. We just got a PDF of that.
Yeah, I just think that until we get something updated from Terry, it's really not a good use of our time to be correcting things that are old versions.
We're not going to get an updated version from Terry, if I'm understanding CJ correctly, because she now has Terry's files.
Yeah, I thought that's what we got October 29th, but I guess not.
So what I think has happened, and I will confirm this with them, is that they brought the edits into the InDesign document and then didn't create a new PDF of what was in the InDesign document before they packaged it off to me. So we're going to have to sit down and figure it out.
So
So that's something that we're going to have to do next week, is go through the OneDrive folder and the Cornell box drive and then this Google Drive and determine which one is the most recent version. Because we have 3 platforms we're working off of. So yeah, I hear you. So we'll be doing that next week.
So
I see how they're smiling.
So can we have like one document instead of?
That would be amazing. I hear you. Yes. We're going to have to do that next week. We're going to have to sit down and figure out between the 3 different platforms, which Word version contains the most recent edits, and then bump that against the InDesign documents through InDesign and make sure, hopefully that was packaged up, and go from there, basically.
So meanwhile, if people have information that they need to get to you that has not been in this NRI before, like Robin and David, they can send that to you.
Yes, they should. There's only, as far as I understand it, just these 2 outstanding pieces, which are the the executive summary with the updates, and then the question about the Wetlands Reserve Program. And those should be the final two pieces. And we'll just have to go through the myriad Word documents and check for the most recent comments and clean those up and then import it into InDesign. My hunch is that the newest version might be in InDesign. I just have not opened it and packaged it up yet. So, because I thought that the PDF version was the newest one.
We'll wait to hear from you. I think it might be premature for people to go in and see if their comments are in one of these versions in the Google Drive, because you might have something newer.
Yeah, because most of you made changes on either a Word document or you made changes to our OneDrive version of the documents. So what happened is that Cornell Cooperative Extension used Box, it's kind of like OneDrive, but it's, their own little platform. And we couldn't get to the documents there because every link that they would send us for whatever reason didn't work. And so I asked them to put these somewhere where we could actually access them. And so that's when they gave us the Google Drive link. So we'll get this all in one place. It's just a little messy right now because too many platforms. We'll clean it up and we'll get a final version here.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds like way too much fun.
It's all right. We can get that moving in time for planning board to review it. We should be able to take care of that next week. Foresee any issue with that.
And then just put draft in really big letters on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we share a link with you. And that way you can take a look at it. In fact, if you want to shoot for a close of business on the 13th, we can send it to you all on Friday. And then, you could just give us a shout and say, hey, this looks fine. Or yeah, go ahead and circulate. This looks like the final version we were looking for. And if not, then on Monday or Tuesday, we won't circulate it if there's any additional changes to be made. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, are we done with that? I hope for now.
I think so.
So we come to the scenic resources appendix. Do we want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, maybe Robin and Karen can just update us.
Well, I'm totally behind because I had surgery a couple of weeks ago, and so I haven't done anything. So I am just getting use of my hand back. And now that I have, now I can work on it again.
Yeah, I don't think there's any terrible rush for that. We'll get it done. It'll just come later, after we've already submitted the NRI.
And do we want to set up a subcommittee that could maybe help with, refining those choices and finalizing it all? Because it seemed like last time people felt like it was going to take a couple of minds on the whole idea of weighing one scenic view over another and designating them as super duper or not so super. So.
Yeah. And I think what we need to do is it's really two-part. One is to look at what is in the existing inventory and decide what we want to kick out. And then the second part is what we want to nominate via the committee about stuff that was missed, which I think, depending on how thorough we want to be, there's so much local knowledge within this committee, I think that we can really improve it. But we do, when it comes to that time, we really need, to put it under some pretty good scrutiny and have all hands on deck to find some sites.
Yeah.
So should we just table this until our next meeting?
Unless you've got some stuff to talk about too.
No, not really. When I went around and visited my sites, I made comments about this one can be deleted. This one is my one that I suggest that we add. I don't know if other people had suggestions for new sites. I might have been the only one that took it that far.
No,
But
I did a
I
bunch.
just, there were a few of mine that I wanted to get rid of. Sorry.
Yeah,
somebody
I
else
have
speaking.
a whole bunch of things.
So maybe John and I, if we're the two folks who had additional things, maybe we can work with Karen to figure out how do we approve them? Can just the three of us approve? Do we need to involve the whole committee for that?
We
It's a
can make
new.
it anyway, and then if we still have questions for other people, we could bring you all back in later.
Yeah, I guess there's that third category too of, well, it was close, but really the point that they indicated is, 100 yards south of where it really might have been, and so it needs to stay in but get moved so that it's accurate.
Yeah,
And
I
I
did
think
a bunch of
we've
those.
definitely there's definitely a bunch of those in Ludlowville where you're looking at, like a propane tank or something. So
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that the whole committee needs to look at them, because if you
Yeah.
didn't visit it personally, I mean, then unless everybody wants to go visit them personally, I don't see the harm in adding new ones. Is there any harm that we might overprotect something that's nice looking? I don't see any harm in adding new ones. I guess I don't really know.
Oh,
if we
yeah.
need to get everybody's approval on them. or
yeah,
we
and
just-
it's not regulatory anyway, so this is really, this is an aesthetic subjective.
So maybe we just curate our little list and then we create the inventory and give the whole thing to people to look at.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great.
Anybody else feel strongly that they want to be involved?
We trust you.
Mm.
Thanks.
I'd say curate away.
I think the real question will be like, what is the format of this inventory? Is it a Word document, an appendix? Is it like a list, like the table of unique natural areas? There's the view shed part of it. It might end up being, I guess, just a big document with some tables and representative photos. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
I recall that we did talk about having some representative photos. Didn't we talk about that? Like having a subset, a few highlights or something like that, or make sure there are some images that are easy for people to see. And
Well, I already started a Word document in Google Docs, so maybe we can just add to that. And then if people want to look at it, we'll share it when the time comes.
Sounds great.
So that one, Carrie has started something also, and so those two need to get together unless they're the same thing.
You mean the spreadsheet?
Mine was just this expanded spreadsheet based on Robin's.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Mhm. And I'll get my photos in there, which I have taken, with the exception of the waterfalls along the lake that I was waiting for the train to move 2 months ago. And the train's still there. It's like,
oh,
Waiting for water in the waterfalls.
I can't walk my dog.
and it
down
would be nice to have water in the waterfalls, but oh well.
Oh, does anybody know if the construction, there was one of my sites that I guess I could just go look. There was like a bridge that I was supposed to look at that I couldn't get to because they had torn out the bridge and you physically couldn't drive to it. It was somewhere in Ludlowville.
Yeah, well, the bridge is supposed to be done next week, and I think it's not going to be open for a month because the cement is curing, but there will be a bridge there
Okay.
in
Yeah.
another week or
It's
so.
coming along fast now. The
It
deck
is.
is on it now.
Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to have about a month where we're completely cut off from civilization out here.
We'll bring you food.
You'll have to throw it across the deep chasm because I couldn't see a way to get to this.
I know. Both bridges out simultaneously. Who'd have thought?
That's all I have about the scenic stuff.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I ask a quick question about the scenic views? They're all in a kind of a single spreadsheet by kind of distinctiveness, or there's a couple, there's like noteworthy, and you've got them kind of separated.
They started in they started in the GIS, which Karen then made maps for us. So my understanding is that people have just individually sent their notes in different formats, and that their version of record is those notes are just going to get put into the GIS as either updating coordinates, adding new points with new coordinates, or renaming them if we decide to rename them or reclassify them as distinctive. But I don't think they've been integrated into a spreadsheet yet.
so
Okay, I was
most,
just,
go ahead.
I just wanted to ask because the Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan is kicking off now, and they've got their website up and running, and they're also coming to do some imagery. So they're going to be coming with a little vehicle that does 3D views. And I was thinking if we had some top sites to give them, that they could go out and, maybe I could give them 10 sites that they could go out and do a full VR scan with their they have a little machine, like an ATV that goes around and just takes cool photos, like high res photos of a 360-degree view. And I was thinking, hey, why not? Especially.
Were they at Salt Point today? Because I saw a weird vehicle at Salt Point with like a sensor on it driving around, and I thought maybe it was like Google taking some street image.
Yeah, they're trying to capture 360-degree views of the trails and parks and everything. So I figured if we could give them like a top 10 hit list, we could send them out. Not right this second, but over the next couple months, they could go out and shoot some video. We might as well have it. I mean, it'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I know, getting one of Ludlowville Falls, and I know the view from the top of midway up Lockerbie Hill is really beautiful. And I think John Fleming had a couple of sites that were really great views, and there are some that I think would lend themselves really well to a 3D.
Okay, cool. Yeah, if you can give me a list maybe of a dozen of them or so over the next like maybe month or two, because leaves will be down. It's a good time to take video. Or take visuals. So just an idea. I mean, no pressure, but it's easy to send it off to them. So
CJ, on a similar note, if we have photos of all these places, is there any reason we can't have like an online album and people could like reference between the document and a photo online?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We could set up a page. In fact, Heather and Jenna are working on doing some updates to the town's website, so we could have a special page for it. I don't see why not. They think it's desperately overdue, and they've taken the initiative to do some upgrades. So anyway, yes, is the short answer. Let's get that circulated, the version, and then we can start to kind of piece some of these pieces together, because I'd want you all to kind of weigh in on what you want the design maybe of CAC's webpage to be. I'm sure you want it to be a little more zesty than the planning board or zoning board, because it's not just like submittals, right? It'd be more interesting.
Music, the whole shebang. We'll put Todd in charge of the music.
Okay, shall we move on to the CAC annual report?
I could just give a quick update on this. At the last meeting, we decided that CJ and Tom and myself and David, I believe, we're going to pull together an annual report that we're required to submit to the DEC and the Environmental Management Council, right, CJ? So as Tom and I were planning this meeting, I realized, I probably could just pull this together. It's only a few paragraphs. And anyway, gave it a shot. And so Tom then commented and put in some kudos to CJ at the end of it. And so you should have a new version in your email. So I will work from that one and incorporate comments that people want to give to me either now, or if you want to send me an email with whatever I've omitted, which could be plenty, or whatever I've gotten wrong, I'd be very grateful. And then I'll do it right this time. I will send that to CJ, Tom, and David for additional comment, and then to the whole CAC. And then I think we'll be good to go. It's due in December.
Okay.
Okay.
And is this just a bookkeeping thing, or is there something that actually gets done with this report? It's hard to write something when you don't know what its purpose is.
Yeah, CJ, it gets filed with the town, right? Also?
Yeah, it gets submitted to the town board. I'd have to look up the exacts, but it's in the statute, state statute, that it has to be prepared annually, submitted to the DEC. And we send it to the County Environmental Management Council as courtesy. But I think not sure what the audience is, but I think it's like the town board, DEC, so.
Yeah, it's a very short document. It's 2 pages.
I was thinking it might be something that might be like if some town board member goes, what the heck is that CAC all about? What are they doing? Have they done anything?
Yeah.
And someone could pull it up and say, oh yeah, they did do something.
Yeah.
So, is that kind of it, CJ, or am I wrong?
Yeah, it's nice to have that annual report of everything you've been working on. Certainly, it will be, welcome. They'll be happy to read it, I'm sure. And I can find out, I'll have to probably just dig into the section of law that explains what it is that's in the annual report. You guys have a lot of rules. Okay. Shall file an annual report with the local legislative body of the municipality on or before the 31st day of December of each and every year. Once approved, the town board will forward a copy of this report to the Commissioner of Environmental Conservation. That's it.
I don't think too many people are going to read it. Would be my guess. But the fact that it's 2 pages I think it's good. It's short. So. Okay. Office of Renewable Energy Siting, ORS regulations. I'm not sure how many people read that 111-page document, but I took a look at it. And it seemed to me that well, first of all, so this is what what New York State is proposing to use to site very large solar and wind. And it seems to me from a CAC's perspective, the only thing that I thought that was worth commenting on were setbacks from streams and wetlands, and also what possibly can be done to mitigate the impact of a very large solar array on the neighbors. And so that's when I was looking at it, I had a few comments about that. There's let's see, table 2 around, I believe it's around page 24, lists setbacks. And right now, the way it's written, is only 100-foot setback from a non-participating residence from their property line, and a 250-foot setback from somebody's house. And Mike Ziegler has raised this issue because he's very concerned that they're going to put one right next to him. And I think it's a legitimate concern. I mean, that sounds mighty close for something of industrial scale.
That's true.
I don't remember what non-participating is.
So that means you're not leasing the land for the solar. So it's the neighbor of the people that are leasing the land. So if you're a participating person, they're probably leasing your land.
So it can be 2 feet away?
No, it has
250.
250 feet away from a non-participant's house and only 50 feet away from their property line.
Right, and participating, it's not even on there, right? If I'm reading it correctly.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So they can just come right up to your house if you're participating.
Well, I mean, that's something that whoever's doing it has to work out with
Yeah,
who's asking for the lease.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about the neighbors than the people who are actually getting all the money.
what do you think is reasonable?
Well, that's a good question. What is reasonable? Sigler proposed 1,000 feet. That might be a little too much. And keep in mind that the state's going to do whatever they want, but it's, and Sigler has been asking for the town board to put this in law. We have a solar law, but it's for small scale solar. And this is something totally, and we have some control over small scale solar if it's less than 25 megawatts, but these ones that are coming to Lansing or that are proposed for Lansing are much, much bigger than that. So I don't know, 500 feet. The other issues that are brought up is, they're supposed to do a visual impact assessment. So I think that's pretty important. What's going to be the visual impact and how do you mitigate that? So those are areas that I thought that maybe we could have some kind of impact, or at least make some kind of statement about what we thought would be appropriate.
Yeah, but it's gonna be arbitrary, right, Tom? Because it's like we always run into this with riparian buffers as well, right? That nobody seems to know exactly what they're doing, but we know there should be a setback. And see, it seems like the same thing. Like nobody wants to be cheek to jowl with a large solar array, but that's the reason. You just don't want to be very close to it. So it's how close are people comfortable with is what it comes down to. Because I don't think there's any functional health reason that it shouldn't be that close, right?
There be any light trespass or sound trespass from it? I mean, assuming they're just quiet and they're not lit and they're not making noise.
So this
Sure,
law,
sure.
this law
But we need
applies.
something. If you had something like that, we can come up with a distance, right? How far before sound gets buffered, or something like that.
So they do. This is not only solar; it also applies to wind. So they have sections on wind and solar, and they have
Well, that's important because the president said the wind ones give you cancer.
Yes, that's right. Let's see what the decibel.
Wind is not being considered in Lansing,
No.
is it?
No, there's no capacity for that.
So, but I think they have like a 65 decibel level, 1 hour maximum, and 45 for 8 hour maximum for wind. But again, that's not going to be an issue. It's the solar that's heading for Lansing.
Looks like they have some noise limits, which seem to pertain to the construction and operation of the facility. Which these numbers mean nothing to me. I don't know what 45 dBA LEQ is. So I wouldn't know how
That's pretty-
annoying that is or how disruptive it is.
Well, if it's decibels, 90 decibels is pretty loud.
Mm.
I think, for hearing protectors, they recommend you be down around 60 or something like that.
But it's a lot of still not linear, so it goes down fast. 45 is quite soft.
Mhm.
Seems to me that this question of standoff, other than sound, but just visually, is really a visual question. So it matters not only how far away it is, but what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it might be that minimum distance could be much less and be tolerable if there was simply a hedge there or a berm or something like that. Where
Well,
I don't know
that's another issue they address. Yeah, there's supposed to be some kind of mitigation going on between this thing and neighbors.
yeah.
So yeah.
And that seems it's something that should be practicable with solar array. I don't know how high the panels are going to be off the ground, but they're not terribly high.
20 feet maximum, I think is what they're saying.
Right. That's what I remember. Yeah. So that's something that could be dealt with in more ways than just distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I had somehow it had escaped me that whole array was going up on Jerry Smith Road, and I just drove by there over the weekend, and it's big, but it's not obtrusive or anything that I would consider an eyesore.
Mm-hmm. That's a small one.
Yeah.
Well,
How many acres is that? Do you know?
It's like 27.
Uh-huh.
the other thing is eyesores are really in the eye of the beholder. I lived and worked for a year in Germany, and I that looks like such a neat, clean place. It took me quite a while to realize that it was because there are no poles and wires above the ground anywhere. We put up with that horrible stuff, and we don't even notice it. So I don't know. It's a complicated question about this. It's not so obvious what the impacts are going to be.
Right. And where Mike Sigler, where he lives in the property around him, that's 120 acres that they're looking at in terms of panels there. So
that's a lot of area.
Yeah, that's a pretty good size one. And some other neighbors in the area that could expand it far beyond that. So
yeah.
Wow.
Did they mention soil erosion at all in that? Soil erosion control or potential?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talk about stream buffers and wetland buffers, and
They have to prepare a full SWIP too.
Like
Project has to.
Or something, they talk about maintaining something under the solars, or to dig up a bunch of grassland, long-term perennial grassland that's, and then put in solar panels. It could be just a lot of soil erosion. You could be, 500 feet away and a bunch of mud could come sliding up to your house. But also it could be a lot of soil that just goes, travels into waterways and stuff.
They're asking for, I think they're going to ask for like topsoil mitigation plans, which is something that local law actually asks for. That I don't think is actually in the state's local law. We're more strict than they are, but hopefully they'll consider that to be reasonable.
Yeah, so there's a vegetation management plan that's required. On page 98, they describe erosion controls, David.
so,
And they
so
mention erosion other times too, like with the SWIP and other places.
I read a fair amount of it. I didn't read every word by any means, but I was actually fairly impressed with the comprehensiveness of the range of issues that were raised. And even, for instance, in talking about endangered species, which there's a section on, they even included the point that one should take into account climate change and thinking about how these things are going to be affected over the life of the place. So I found it fairly encouraging in terms of the way things were dealt with in general.
Mhm.
What really struck me was on, I think it was page 70, which is talks about the fact that the application has to reference the local laws and restrictions, but then that's where it says that the state may choose to waive those. And that's kind of the heart of the matter with respect to what we care about, what we might try to do about it. And that looks like basically the state can just decide not to pay attention to local laws.
Well, technically, they have to address, what's in the comprehensive plan. And they do have to address local laws. They can't just totally ignore it.
So that was one of my,
At least on paper, they can't totally ignore it.
Right.
we have this whole NRI that's nearly complete. And is there any way to encourage ORES to consider documents like natural resource inventories, or is that just not going to happen?
Well, they have to consider the comprehensive plan. So, and local laws, both.
Which I guess technically our NRI is neither, but could we do anything about that? Like have it appended to the comprehensive plan?
I'm not sure I read it right, but they have to consider those things, and the application has to talk about them. But then it's said there that the state may choose to disregard them.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, for legal purposes, comprehensive plan can be more than just the pure comprehensive plan. It can be any other associated adopted plans that the town has used, at least as far as zoning is concerned, or zoning challenge. But the thing, I was wondering what you all thought of this kind of net conservation benefit plan that they're proposing. I was just wondering what you thought of that, and then whether you'd like to at least suggest the Office of Renewable Energy citing that if the town does have a conservation advisory council or conservation board, that they could be asked to comment at least, or something like that. Could be the one kind of shoehorn maybe we could get in there.
Yeah.
How are they deciding about impacts to wildlife? And there's mention of grassland birds. There's mention of occupied bird habitat, but how are they determining that?
It's a good question. They do ask for a wildlife site characterization, pulling from all those data sources that you see in the section G1, or they made these super hard to follow along, 900 2.14 G1. And then they ask at the end, you have to go through that whole wildlife characterization. So you have a wildlife site characterization report, habitat assessment, and then a net conservation benefit plan if it's required.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that.
What does that mean?
Means like after all the, you take all the pluses of the project and minus out all the wildlife impacts, and there's your net benefit.
That sounds easy. Not.
Some criteria applied to accepting or not accepting that calculus, or what does it mean?
So in the second section, they've divided, of course, this into two sections. So the other PDF that I sent, so there's two PDFs. The second one has a lot of the uniform standards in it, and they define a net conservation benefit plan. And so detailed explanation of the net here. Let me just stop talking.
So just so people know, I did not forward that with this agenda because it just seemed like it was way too much, but it's good you're going to pull it
way
up.
too much. For sure. It's definitely way too much. But anyway, this is their net conservation benefit plan, and this is what is supposed to be articulated in it.
Oh, okay.
And I can just send you the links for both of these if you're interested to read
Yeah.
more of it. But Robin, this is what they're suggesting for this, for the mitigation. And payment of a mitigation fee into the Endangered Species Fund.
I'd like to see that. If you would send a link.
Yeah,
to it.
sure. I'll just send a link to both of them. They're handy.
It sounds like they might be treating it as unavoidable impacts, and
Mhm.
if they deem it so, then they're just gonna pay the fee and do it anyway.
Yep, exactly right.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I have a question about, I guess this is a hydrology question. So if you have 150 acres covered with solar panels and you have a major rainstorm, how different would the runoff be from that compared to an ag field, say?
It would be a lot.
Well, that's a
You're
good
gonna
question, Tom.
concentrate
And I haven't looked at a huge one like that. We've looked at a small one and compared it to a comparable size ag field. And we didn't actually see it becoming so flashy. But I think this is one that was on Cornell land. And I think they put big gravel trenches below each one of the panels so they could really absorb a lot of water. And so it would take a lot of water to fill that up and cause a substantial runoff event. Now, I didn't see, when I was skimming through your thing, I didn't see any like specific planning design criteria for this. It just like they had to account for runoff. But yeah, I have the same question, and there is absolutely no study on this other than one modeling study out of Maryland.
Yeah, if they're strictly, does anyone hear me or not?
Yeah.
If they're strictly putting the panels on otherwise undisturbed ground, all the water from that panel is going to drop in one spot.
Right.
The tendency for that to run is going to be a lot higher.
Right. Like I say, the one study, one place we've looked at, they put a huge gravel trench in there so they could really take a lot of water and store it there and let it go out slowly. I don't know if they all do that. So I've been trying to get Cornell facilities to let me go tour the ones they have so I can just kind of see what are the different ways they've tried to mitigate this. But I would be concerned.
Yeah.
And so here's the other thing, Tom. A lot of the energy that would come in and normally drive evaporation is driving energy. And so we have actually less energy available to move water out of those and back into the atmosphere as well. So that's the other side of this that could exacerbate this problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We just haven't measured it yet.
Well, should we bring this up as an issue for them to consider?
And if you give me a specific comment there on a question, what was the question that you had for the Office of Renewable Energy Siting? I'm kind of aggregating them and I'll send them.
The
It's about how
potential for more serious runoff on a field that's covered with solar panels as opposed to, say, an agricultural field.
Sure. What I mean to say is that what would you want to know that wouldn't be determined as part of a SWIP? Like,
So you think that would be covered?
they have to do modeling for runoff values. I mean, I can.
Right. I mean,
Give you some of
technically,
the
they're not
language.
supposed to have, if it's like what comes before the planning board, technically, you're not supposed to have any more runoff from a project than you would if you didn't have the project. And so this is what they're proposing. They're going to maintain the same amount of runoff.
I don't know if they're going to require 100% capture on site. Was that the question?
I think it's usually that they just have the peak runoff can't be higher than it was before.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, got it. So the question will be is whether they will allow. Okay, got it.
Because the west side of the Jerry Smith one up there has got quite a large berm there to capture the rainwater coming off of that. And initially, before they were even done, they had at least one time where it overtopped that, and they had to make it even larger.
Hmm.
And is this big site next to Sigler's? Is this kind of marginal land or is this good
Well,
cropland?
we're farming, so
It's what?
right now, so we call it better than marginal.
Okay, okay. Because the marginal land tends to get really wet and causes lots of runoff already. So,
Right.
but if it's good stuff, yeah, it could absorb a lot of water. So,
Yeah, but there's some slopes there, some, longer slopes that you could definitely end up with some issues.
I don't know that we really answered Tom's question about setbacks either, and still trying to think about what a reasonable setback would be for not having a industrial substation next to your house. And it's starting to sound like 250 feet might not be adequate, although I don't spatially know like how far that really looks. I would probably have to walk 250 feet away from my house to see how far it feels. But yeah, I don't know. And then if it does have all this runoff, then that runoff can come, if it's directed to your property, that's also a problem, right? If it's going right onto your paved driveway. So I'm starting to think the setback maybe should at least, whether or not it's granted, maybe ask for more of a setback. I don't know, CJ, what seems reasonable, if 500 feet or 1,000 feet? I really don't know what's reasonable, but it's starting to sound like it should be more.
And this was based on the stormwater concern, not just on neighboring properties, perhaps the.
I think it's all of it. It's the noise, the runoff. I'm thinking of runoff because we have huge problems on the unpaved street that I live on. Is eroded by other neighbors and their choices to do things on their property. Erodes the whole road for everyone, and so these are issues that come up. If there's an increase in stormwater, it just reminded me that we have to repave our driveway almost annually because of the constant runoff that is being dumped onto the shared road. So now I'm thinking about, does the setback affect that at all too? The amount of runoff that you get on private property, is 250 feet enough?
You'd like to get them.
No, it's 250 feet from a house. It's 50 feet from the property line. Is what is proposed right now.
I would be in favor of increasing that.
I think it's more than 50 feet from the property line, right? 50 feet was from the center of the.
Oh, no, you're right. 50 feet from center line of road, 100 feet from property line.
Which is still not much.
No. And again, all we can do is offer suggestions, and the state will do what they're going to do.
Yeah, so
But
it
you'd
would be
like
100 feet.
to suggest larger setbacks for all properties due to concerns about stormwater and capture, and making sure that there's enough room to have that on site. That's what
Right. So it doesn't change, it's not changing the flow of water. So now it's diverting onto your land, and now you have impacts from it.
Yeah, they're not gonna be allowed to do that, is my guess. They'll have to design the project such that, I think what I'm hearing you say is that you want to see whatever project was designed capture 100% of stormwater on site.
I think they're going to be required to do that with the SWIP, aren't they?
That's my thinking, but
Yeah,
it
that's
can't
my
hurt
understanding.
to mention it again as part of design and additional setbacks, like site
But yeah.
specific criteria.
The setback is a separate question, though. That's, more of a visual thing.
So I have a question that kind of harkens back to Todd's comment about the deep gravel underneath the rows of panels. In the decommissioning section, I don't know a lot about decommissioning these things, but this section seemed really short to me. And I'm just wondering what happens when the life of the solar farm, for example, is done. And you've got these trenches of gravel in the land. And, they talk about a recycling plan, but basically that section said to me, you need to have a plan, but it didn't really point to specifics. And that's perturbing to me, because I can imagine our children and our children's children going by these dead solar farms that are 127 acres and nothing's been done, and not enough money was left to, properly decommission them. And the town doesn't want to take that on. So, I mean, there's something in here about the amount of money that they need to set aside. 15 gross cost estimates shall include a 15% contingency cost. But I don't know. I'm left feeling very nervous about what this would look like in the future.
I was
I think
wondering-
you have a good reason to be concerned. The energy sector hasn't necessarily been that good at reclaiming land. We can look at strip mines out west that were supposed to be completely reclaimed when they were done. We can go look at the Hanford site. There's very few cases where you look at the reclamation after these are done. Even though the plans up front look great, suddenly the company doesn't exist and somebody's left with a crapped up piece of land. So I hate to be cynical, but that's just sort of what the track record's been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it would be great if somebody knew more about this than I do, but my gut is saying you got to beef up that section.
Is there anything about that in the second part that we didn't get yet?
There is some language, but it's not as good as the towns. So I just sent the local law for the abandonment that explains the town's process on abandonment and decommissioning. And I think my understanding for the state's regulations is that the permittee and the host municipality should come to an agreement as to the appropriate amount of financial security to be provided. So we're going to be able to call the bond amount. And I think take a look at our local law and see if there's anything that should be better as far as decommissioning goes. I just sent it in the little chat thing.
Great.
There was a lot of discussion about decommissioning when this town law was being formulated. So that I think it was given due credit that it was something that had to be dealt with.
Guy Crow put a lot into it. So, yeah.
Back to the setbacks with the residence versus the property line. With the property line one being a lot less, that would tend to make you less likely to want to build a house on that property of the non-participant down the road too. That would kind of limit you there, depending on what that property's like.
Huh. Yeah.
So maybe they should be the same.
That's a good point.
So you're proposing a 250-foot setback from the property line.
Well, or whatever number we pick for the residence, so that if somebody wants to build a house on their property that abuts one of these, that they would have the same buffer when you're done.
Right.
So do we
Andrea,
want
you're-
to read
you're
the
muted.
decision on that, or what's that, Tom?
Andra's muted. I think she's trying to say something.
You're muted.
Mute. Yeah, there, we got it. Sorry about that. I just keep on thinking the bigger the project, like the one that might happen behind Mike Ziegler's house, you would think that the setbacks should be even bigger. A smaller project just seems like the visual impact and the impact of the runoff and everything else wouldn't be as big as one that's over 100 acres. And my driveway from the road is 1,000 feet. And I think 1,000 feet is very appropriate as a setback. I don't think that's outrageous at all. Especially with the bigger projects. I think it should be looked upon as, this is humongous. So, the setback should be much bigger.
You can always ask for more.
So
You might
Yeah,
ask
that's
for more
that's
than
what I
you can.
think. I mean, of course, they're going to decide what they're going to decide, but
Right.
well, what about suggesting a, sort of a 3-tiered system of setbacks? So, whatever, 10 to 25 acres, it could be 200 feet, and then on several hundred acres or more than 100 acres, it could be, because there's more to play with, right?
right.
I don't think there's a one size fits all. I think you bring up a really great point, Andrew.
Yeah, it depends a lot on the topography too. Whether you're looking down on the whole thing or whether it's sloping out of sight or whatever, that would matter too. I'm wondering if what would be done with all this land? That gets to be a lot of land.
It's left.
Even 200 feet around the periphery of 20 acres that's a lot of acres. That's probably more than 20 acres, right? So that's a lot of land. If we're suggesting setbacks, maybe we ought to think about what it could be used for. Could they have some conservation utility, for instance? Could they be maintained for grassland species? Or we could think of lots of things. That's a lot of land. Or could it be farmed? Or whatever. I don't know.
Do you have thoughts on that, John? Fleming?
For that matter, that would after a period of time remove the visual impact, or it would change it to looking at a woods instead of. But there are lots of possibilities there that with all that land.
Yeah, in terms of the possibility of still farming, it would all depend on the configuration of it and the topography. If they end up leaving you, 5-acre chunks or something, it's not very favorable, at least for a larger farm.
But if it was a continuous perimeter around the whole thing, that would be reasonable.
Would be better. It'd still be inefficient because you're traveling a long distance to get a small number of acres, really.
Right. Yeah.
If I had a rectangle that's 20, or a square that's 20 acres versus, it's a lot more work.
Yeah.
So it's inefficient.
Yeah.
But it's doable, but it's not efficient.
But certainly if it was 1,000 feet and you had, I don't know, a quarter of a mile of it, that wouldn't be an outrageous thing to imagine farming, would it?
No, it would be better, definitely. Yeah.
Hmm.
And at that point, I would assume that whoever owns the land, the company that's doing it over, probably, I don't know, their agreement would be that the solar company's responsibility is only for where their panels are, and does the original owner still have the responsibility or the ability to still rent that or farm it or whatever they want to do. I don't know how they would structure that.
That would probably be a matter for negotiation, I suppose.
Right, I would think.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that then puts every single individual landowner in a position of negotiating all these things, researching them. And I think it's great to have as much guidance in here as possible.
Sure.
Yeah, as it stands, they are. They're all doing it individually right now.
Yeah. guess I'm interested in any other comments that you might have, John, as a farmer, as you think about this guidance, and yeah, it's a big game changer.
Right, because we have 2 landlords now that are considering it. So we would lose 200 acres just for our farm if those go through within, whatever the time frame is, if they actually go through. So then we have to come up with another 200 acres somewhere that's comparable in productivity to be able to continue to farm the way we are. Otherwise, we're short for forage or whatever else we want to do down the line. So we're not super excited about it right now, because there's no way we can compete with the price per acre that they're at least allegedly offering people, because it's crazy. And we were offered, one of our landlords he was asked by the solar company what it would cost to buy us out of our lease if they wanted out early, to be able to start construction prior to the end of the lease. So I threw out a pretty stupid number and they still accepted it. There's way too much money in that industry.
So we'll know where they blew their wad when they don't reclaim it properly.
Yeah, right. I should have asked for more.
Yeah.
So do we say 500 to 1,000 foot setback, depending on the conditions from the property line?
Now, is that a property line or is this from the residents?
Well, so the number they give for residents is 250 feet. For the property line, it's only 100 feet.
100 feet. Because I'm just wondering, does it make a difference whether it's way on the other side of my property and there's just woods over there, or whether it's close to my house?
Sure it does.
So I think it's a little bit of, goes back to this view shed kind of idea. Like, are you going to be having to interact with it? I think a little bit depends on how far it needs to be set back. I think Andrew's exactly right. 1,000 feet is not unreasonable if it's near where you live and are very active.
But Todd, I would say you don't know 30 years hence whether there's going to be, a house on another part of your property, or and that solar farm or that wind farm could be there for a very long time. So just because you have a house in a particular location on your property now, if you have a big piece of property, you could easily have a house in another section of it down the road. But the presence of the solar farm could deter your own use of your property.
Well, yeah,
so
that's why I wouldn't accept a lease on my property, but other people have other decisions to make.
Well, I guess I would argue for it being from the property line, not the house.
Okay.
Yeah, that was John's point, and I agree completely. That's a good point.
So do we have a number?
I'd vote for the 500 to 1,000 in the spirit of Andra Benson, depending on the size of the array.
I think that's very reasonable. I really do.
So you have that, CJ?
Okay, so CAC suggests 500 to 1,000 square feet from
No, linear
Not
feet.
square,
property.
linear feet. Linear feet.
Yeah, sorry, from residential property lines.
Mhm.
500 to 1,000 square feet from residential property lines. Okay.
Or any property line.
Any property, okay, from property lines period. Okay.
Mhm. Well, we have another agenda item, and we've batted this around for a certain amount of time. Maybe any other comments should just be sent to to CJ by the 12th, CJ? You have to collate them, right? Or-
They're all pretty combined
Okay.
already, thankfully. Yeah, any comments you have by the 13th would certainly be helpful.
And then are we going to say anything about the visual impact assessment or not worry about that?
You wanted them to consider the scenic inventory and the natural resources inventory?
No, this is,
Wouldn't that be nice?
oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So any more discussion on that particular topic? As the night wears on. So we have one more thing on the agenda, I believe, and that's the note from Dean Shea asking the Conservation Advisory Committee if they would help in establishing a bunch of vegetative guidelines for the planning board, basically. And I hope everybody had a chance to look at that. It seems like something that we could certainly address.
I'm very pleased that they are asking this committee to be more involved and they want input from this committee. I think that's a really good step.
I agree.
Yeah.
So shall we agree to do that? I mean, it's not something that we have to do immediately, but we can discuss it further maybe at the next meeting.
When you say do that, does that essentially mean that we would respond by saying that we would be willing to be helpful and work with them?
I was thinking it was more something that we could do independently and come up with some guidelines and send it to the planning board and see what they think.
You'd want guidelines because you don't want to, unless you have tons of time, you don't want to have to be asked to do it for every project that comes up.
Yeah, and I think my experience with the requirements from the planning board was that with our solar panels, we had to move them a little bit closer to the road in order to get exposure that we needed, and it required a variance. And for no other reason other than just to penalize us for asking for a variance, they insisted that we had to put plantings in to hide the posts that held up the solar panels. And there's no way you're going to miss that these are solar panels. And so planting around the base just seemed, I don't know, it seemed a little bit spiteful. And I think for them to have guidelines that are sort of outside of what seemed kind of political would be a great idea, because this was just stupid. I mean, it's nice that I've got rose bushes, but it was not at all relevant to the waiver that we got, variance. So yes, I agree.
Okay.
If I may just say, I think they just want to have a list of some of the species that might be preferred or thrive, and then also what the mature heights might be, so that they can encourage different, a range of plantings. And I think the Environmental Management Council for the county would be happy to help. anyway.
So how much do they want to work on that, CJ? And how much do you think they want us to just take a piece and run with it?
My understanding is they're looking for, explicit direction and a planting schedule that you might prefer. I think they're looking for you to develop some draft ideas at least. I think it did stem from a couple projects in the town that we keep going back and forth. Is that invasive? Oh, I'm not sure. What's on the planting schedule? We kind of revolved around those type of conversations. So I think it's like a genuine ask just for different species that you think would be appropriate in different contexts.
And I would think soil and water or NRCS, I would think would be the resources to help us get some of that sort of information.
I'm just thinking, I don't know if we have the expertise, on our committee for that. I mean, I certainly know a lot about crop plants that were food we eat, but in terms of native plants that are used, in an ornamental way and sort of that sort of stuff, I know much less about in terms of planting times and mature height and all that. So maybe some of you have more expertise than me, but I certainly couldn't offer to provide that expertise.
Well, I'm sure that we could get a list and some suggestions from Dan Siegel also.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that the town, or I don't know about the town of Lansing, but the city of Ithaca has beautification advisors and tree committees. They might have this stuff already that we can source and pass along.
There probably are. I mean, in my department, I'm in the horticulture section in the department at Cornell, and Nina Bassick, for example, is a really well-known urban plants expert. Runs the urban horticulture research center, whatever. Don Rakow is also in that department, former director of the Botanic Gardens, and a good friend of mine. So they have resources. I think I could resources from them, find websites from them to look at and that kind of stuff. And I don't really have the expertise for that sort of thing myself.
So I get the feeling that we want to do this.
I think it's a good idea.
Willing.
Yeah.
Willing.
Good. All right.
So what would the next step be? Respond to Dean? Just say we'll address it we addressed it once. We'll bring it up at our next meeting and come up with a little bit more of a plan and some resources.
And that we're interested in being involved.
Yeah, we'd be happy to provide input. We're pleased to be invited and we're glad to provide input.
Okay.
Find some resources, but not that we're handed to us and say, okay, you guys you work out the details.
Yeah, right. I gotta go, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, Todd.
So, Tom, you want to write to him?
Yeah, sure. I told Dean that we were gonna bring it up at the meeting tonight. So he was happy to hear that.
Good.
So yeah, I'll follow up on that.
Great.
So do we have anything else that people want to talk about?
Were you going to say something, John?
Yeah, I just did a quick back of the envelope piece of geometry, just to give us an idea what we're talking about here with these standoffs. If you had 1,000 acres that was a square, and you put a 500-foot perimeter around that, that's 300 acres in the perimeter. 1,000-foot perimeter would be 600 acres. So
We're not talking 1,000 acres. We're talking about 120 acres.
yeah, that's just
Yeah.
to give an idea of the proportions.
Right.
Perimeter's around the outside, so there's a lot of area there. It's
Yeah.
yeah. I just to give you some perspective on it. That's all I want.
So So in other words, don't get your hopes up.
No, no,
Well,
probably not.
That's part of the implication, yeah. Unfortunately.
It did look like in that email from the Sierra Club that some suggestions were made and they were dismissed. So I don't know that it doesn't hurt to ask, but I don't know that I would
Yeah.
have high expectations.
Well, that was for 1,000 acres. If it was 100 acres, it would be a lot worse, actually, because the proportion goes up. If you keep the width of the perimeter the same and scale down the middle, it gets to be a larger and larger proportion of the land. Just to put it in perspective.
Oh, well, it costs to do business and be, aesthetically pleasing at the same time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So we're gonna go with 1,000 feet or something smaller?
Well, we said 500 to 1,000. I would just leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah,
As Robin said, they're probably not gonna.
I was
Even
not
that.
going to change it. I was just trying to give us a little perspective on what we're talking about.
Well,
Yeah.
I have some experience with working with the state, with this DOT facility that went in on Warren Road. And the planning board had all kinds of suggestions, and I'm not sure they considered any of them in the final end. They just did what they were gonna do. We try to mitigate it as best as we could for the residents right nearby, and we had no impact. But we should make a statement to the state if we feel it's appropriate. So,
Yeah. Might as well try.
Well, thanks for carrying the comments forward, CJ.
Absolutely. Thanks for chiming in. That's really helpful to have all of your perspectives. Very helpful.
okay. I think we've probably had enough tonight. Shall we adjourn the meeting?
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
So I'm just sending you a link right now to the new Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan website. It's very spiffy, and there's a community survey there. So if you would kindly take the community survey and let people know that we're gathering comments here and starting to kick off that master plan, that'd be much appreciated.
So see, there was that RFP that was out quite a while ago. This is the contractor that ended up getting hired as a result of that.
Yeah, it's MJ Engineering. Yep.
Who is it?
MJ Engineering is the
Where-
firm that the committee
where-
selected.
Where are they based out of?
Syracuse, I think.
Cool.
So, yep, there's the website, and please check it out and submit comments. I included, I think there's a question in there about Bell Station. So committee wanted to make sure that was addressed also.
How widely do you want this circulated? Like
Everywhere.
it's
It's
okay if
going on the schools listserv, I know. So out to the students. But yes, absolutely. We'd like to have as much community engagement as possible. So,
probably
thank
some
you.
people that don't live in Lansing would get it if I forward it out through some of the groups or committees, things that I'm on.
But if
Is that
they,
okay?
if they use the parks, recreation and trails, I think it's great to hear from them because there is a question about where do you live? So we'll be able to see where folks
Weight
live
the
when they
input.
return. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think, I'll leave that to the committee. They're just collecting it for data as far as I know.
Okay, so far and wide, got it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks, everybody. I think this was a fairly productive meeting.
Mhm.
And we'll see you in a month and probably be in contact
Soon.
about this NRI. Get this thing out. Cool.
Take care.
Have a nice,
Yes.
relaxing, stress-free evening, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Right.